This video is going to talk about how you sandbag a C-stand or a spreader light stand. It's also going to talk a little bit about considering having these stands with a Rocky Mountain leg. That's an adjustable leg. And it's going to talk about some kind of thoughts with regards to upgrading if you're coming from, let's say, a not so nice stand to something that's a little bit more substantial. So if that's of interest, stay tuned. And hello, my name is Steve. I enjoy using this old professional studio equipment, old packs, old heads for strobes, monoblocks, the kind of stuff that might have been used in a studio 20 or 30 years ago. I like it because it still works today, it's still professional today, and it's really inexpensive. And the same holds for this old grip equipment. I mean, what you're looking at here, for example, on the C-stand, it's made by a company, a lighting company called Mole Richardson, and I think it's probably from the 1970s, maybe the 1980s. And super well made, doesn't wear out, not that expensive used. But, if you look at videos about C-stands, they're going to tell you put the sandbag on the biggest leg. And I totally agree with that. They also will probably tell you to use a sandbag, and I can tell you that for a long time I didn't. And for the past half year I have been. It is well worth having the sandbag, so I would suggest going and getting one. These stands are heavy, but the base is not that wide, and it's also at different heights. So I've had a lot of them tip over. And the sandbag just helps to mitigate against that. So you're going to want to put it on the big leg. The common reason for that is it's not touching the ground, so all of the weight is keeping the leg secure. And you probably already know that if you have a light or a modifier at the top of the stand, wherever that weight is boomed out or tends to lean towards, you want to put the big leg under that. So another reason that I've heard for putting the bag on the big leg is that if you were to pull the stand backwards and you didn't have a sandbag there, let's say you had it on the medium-sized leg, the leg to the right, the stand would fall over. And you can try that. I've tried it, and it's an interesting tidbit, whether you believe it or not. It seems to make sense. Obviously, if you really want to get the thing bagged, you're going to put it on the big leg and then the medium leg. So, love this stand. I use it, but what I really enjoy using for lights is a spreader stand. And this is made by Matthews. It's called a Beefy Baby. You can get the same quality, I should say, of stand from another company called American Grip. I think Kupo makes them. They're probably made by Avenger. Any place that you can get a really nice C-stand from, you're going to be able to find these light stands from. So it's pretty straightforward on these. Because they're hefty and substantial, you can put the bags right over the spreaders, and it works really, really well. And it's the same idea here. Wherever the modifier or the light on top of the stand is heaviest, wherever that's pointing, I'm going to want to put the sandbag on that spreader and make sure that the load is over that leg. I like these stands over a C-stand for two reasons. One is that the base is going to be wider, and the other is because you can actually lower the center column all the way to the ground. And what that means is you can typically get these to be lower than the lowest setting that you can get for a C-stand. And sometimes that's important to me, to be able to get the light a little bit lower to the ground. I also like these because they are more compact when you fold them up. I would not call them portable, but they will easily fit into a smaller car. They're a little bit less cumbersome to kind of move around than a C-stand is. and they're just as heavy as a C-stand. I mean, what you're looking at here is something that's made out of steel. Parts of it are made out of aluminum. You're looking at something that's made to go on a film or a TV set, so into a rental house. So it takes a lot of abuse, and they're what I would suggest you go to if you're coming from an inexpensive light stand and you're wondering, should I get a C stand? Or, I would say, well, yeah, maybe, but also take a look at these things. And I'm only mentioning the Beefy Baby because that's the one that I have. But you can certainly look for others that are sort of in that category of substantial light stand. When I think of another difference between a C stand and a light stand or a spreader stand, back in the day, and I'm kind of taking my cues from how they're used in Hollywood on film sets and so on and so forth. The reason for a C stand is to nest or to get underneath a light stand. And you can clearly see that here. And so a lot of times what you're going to be putting on a C stand, or back in the film days, what they would be putting there is something to modify the lights, so something between the light and the subject. Maybe it's a flag, maybe it's a scrim, maybe it's something that they would call a cookie. And, that is an advantage of having one of these C stands, is that you can actually put it into a position that it's hard to get a light stand into. Another way that I use C stands is I might want to put one of the legs under a piece of furniture. If I'm in a tight space, in a tight room, and you can easily do that with the light stand. It's pretty hard to do. But the balance thing, does it tip over? I find that the more substantial light stand adds that support better. And they're both roughly about the same price. The Beefy Baby light stand's probably going to be a little bit more expensive. Neither one of them is going to wear out. So if you can only afford one, I would probably go towards the light stand. And I would also say that you want one of these if you have a nice light or a nice strobe. Also, if you have people around, so you're protecting the people on your set and also your equipment. The Rocky Mountain leg, you can get those on the nicer spreader stands. So this stand has that feature. I just chose to show it here on this old C stand. And I would never use this if I was inside. I just don't have a reason for that. My floors are flat. I'm not going to be putting one of these up against a set of stairs or any of that kind of stuff. But if you are in an area outside, if you're tempted to use these things outside and your ground is not really, really level, then having the ability to adjust one of the legs is going to be important, because the center column, you want that thing to be it's all physics. You want that to be perpendicular to the ground. And by adjusting one of the legs in order to get it so that it is perpendicular to the ground, you can ensure that there's no built-in bias, if you want, for the stand to tip over. In other words, you're not pointing the center column a little bit skewed into one direction and maybe the stand will tip over. So if you are tempted to use one of your stands outside, and you're getting a new one or you're buying a used one, I would consider, thinking about the Rocky Mountain option. And Rocky Mountain's just one way of calling it. Sometimes it's like an adjustable leg. Different manufacturers call them different things. I think on film sets they would call it a Rocky Mountain. So I hope that helps. And sandbags, I would say, yeah, if you're on a C stand, they are your friend. I've learned that the hard way. Also, C stands are really good for nesting or fitting under furniture. I like light stands that are substantial. They might be a little bit more expensive than a C stand, but you can certainly put a grip head and a grip arm. The same things that you would put on top of a C stand, you can put on top of a light stand. It's more substantial. I rarely use a sandbag. And think about a Rocky Mountain leg, especially if you're considering using a stand outside. So the downside to both of these stands is they're heavy. They're not what someone would call super portable, but to me that's actually an advantage because they are going to help to keep your expensive equipment staying up, and also the valued people that you're taking photographs of, or including yourself, safe.